Hey everyone, welcome to this third episode of Truth Detectives. We haven't really detected any truth yet, but I'm here with Andy. Hi, Andy.
Hello.
And he's just watched the second episode of Making a Murderer recently. And I watched it last week, and I've just watched half of it now between the two streams. So we're going to try and not stray too far from just talking about the second episode. Of course, these first couple of episodes are the ones that really they really set up a sympathetic story. If you'd only watched these two episodes, personally, I'd say there's no way he could possibly be guilty. So, what did you make of what you saw in the second episode? Just so that the beginning is sort of the police getting caught out for the 18 years he was sent to prison for something he didn't do, and the police are all being brought up in front of the court about it in this episode. So what were your thoughts on it, Andy?
Well, first of all, I'd like to reiterate to everybody yet again, because I can be very obnoxious sometimes, that it's took me ages to try and convince Adam to watch this, and now he's like totally obsessed to the point where we're doing streams about it. So,
Yeah.
So for anybody that isn't, I just want to sort of reiterate to everybody that anybody that's not watched it, please do. I can't reiterate how fascinating it is from a lot of levels, but for anybody that is up to date, I watched it when it first came out, because I remember it being advertised on Netflix, and I didn't know what it was about really. I thought it was like a documentary about. I can't remember, but I thought it was something totally different. And when I watched it, I thought it was a mockumentary. I had to keep checking that it was actually real. And now that I'm watching it again, it's making me. I'm not too sure I can get to the end of it because it's so unjust what's happened to this guy that it makes me like really angry and really sort of losing faith. Well, not losing faith in humanity because I don't have much faith in humanity anyway. But it's just making me really angry and really feeling sorry for Avery, who I do believe is innocent of this crime. And that's the overriding emotion that I'm feeling. Do you understand that, Adam? You were already on the second watching, but
Yeah.
it was 18 months ago when I watched it for the first time.
Yeah, no, when you watch the series, I think the only way you can really feel is that he is innocent. It's just once you start looking a bit further, I mean, if you go on the internet and sort of look at things like Reddit and forums, it really does divide opinion. And there are some things, obviously, we're going to get to those later on as we go through each episode in the series. There are some things that don't really add up, even from his side. But this episode especially focuses on the corruption within the police themselves.
Yeah, and one of the things that stood out for me was that, and we touched upon it on the last episode, was that basically what had happened with Avery, let's just go back to before that Teresa Halbach disappeared. He had basically been a major thorn in Manitowoc County's police's side in that he basically got to the point where he was humiliating everybody. And they even said it in the documentary where he was standing up with prominent members of society and politicians and saying, look at me. And, well, he wasn't saying look at me, but
it was quite modest about the whole thing. Normally it was mostly the lawyers and such that were talking about him.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Adam. Other people were making a bigger deal about it than him. And he was just saying, well, I've been locked up for all this time, and it shouldn't happen to anybody else. And
yeah. Well, and it was also the point they were trying to make as well is, by doing this, there was a man who had committed this crime running free for 18 years.
I got Andy into Black Mirror. You kind of did. I've got to add that you did, by the way.
Yeah, it's just Miss Kizzy said Andy got me into Black Mirror, and I was like, And you're not stealing my thunder. You wouldn't have watched it if it hadn't been for me.
No, to be fair, I've hounded you to watch Making a Murderer.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I probably wouldn't have watched Black Mirror if it weren't for you, and I fucking love that show. To
Everyone loves it.
I don't think I'm ever going to watch the last episode because I don't want it to end, so...
Well, there's a new series out soon.
I know, but it's... Yeah. Sorry. Where was he up to then, Adam?
How he was handling himself in press conferences and such.
You never got the impression. I'd like to think I'm quite perceptive when it comes to people's demeanours and their intentions and that. I think that I'd like to think I'm good at that. And I never got the impression from... Well, it's only interviews and it's only footage that... I never got the impression he was hiding anything. I never got the impression from Stephen Avery that there was anything sinister. And they even... And do you know what's funny, Adam? Well, funny's the wrong word. But they interviewed Avery when Hallbach went missing.
Yeah.
But before he got charged, and they interviewed him, it was on camera. And do you know what it reminded me of? From a different way, is when they interviewed Ian Huntley when the two girls in Soho got disappeared.
Wow.
Not because of how he reacted, but just because of the circumstances of the situation. How often do you interview someone on a news channel that ends up getting locked away for their murder before they've even been charged and saying, do you know what's gone on? Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Not really.
Because what I mean is, do you not remember the clip in the episode where they interviewed Avery and said, bloody hell, she's gone missing, and do you know what's happened?
Oh, yeah.
And it was just really weird, and I remember watching it and thinking, fucking hell, he doesn't know he's going to get locked up for all these years, and then...
Yeah, but with Huntley, we know he definitely did it. So when you go and watch that back, there's no... I don't know, because it's with Huntley, like, it's just creepy because you know he committed the crime. But with Stephen Avery, it's more contentious. You're just like, did he do it? Did he not? And you watch that interview and you try and look and see if he seems evil in his eyes, don't you?
But totally, I agree with you. And let's be honest, neither of us can be sure 100% that Avery didn't do it. I don't think he did. But I suppose it's just a unique situation.
I won't rule anything out, but every time I try and look at it, at the wider picture and everything, it's just all too coincidental that the murder happens the day or the day before that he's supposed to be getting the deposition for this 36 million settlement. It's just also...
Shit like that doesn't happen.
No.
It just doesn't.
No.
It just fucking doesn't. Anybody with a brain... Anybody listening, any of the people that we talk to now that's listening to this, you're going to know that stuff like that just does not happen. It just doesn't. It's just such...
If you watch, there's the first of Stephen Avery's police interviews available on YouTube, and actually the guy talks to him very friendly, and if you listen to him talking... And I know there's some inconsistencies if you do listen to all of those interviews, but in the first one, it's all a very friendly chat with the police officer. But the police officer says to him, "I don't believe in coincidences. What was her car doing there?" And it's like, well, he could, if he was smarter, he could have turned it around and said, "I don't believe in coincidences. How come the car turns up in my yard the day I'm meant to be getting 36 million off you guys?"
And that brings up a whole other host of questions about what happened, and the police, and they go into more detail in this later episodes when it comes to the court case, but what is immediately suspicious is that from the initial search that the police conducted, they found nothing. Then they searched it again and found ridiculously obvious pieces of evidence, like it just so happens that Teresa Hallbach's car key was in Stephen Avery's bedroom, even though they searched that allegedly the first time, and
it was
wasn't
found
there.
just on the floor, and it was
And
found
it just happened to be there on the floor. I mean, fucking come on. If you were going to plant evidence, if you were going to plant the most ridiculous evidence, that's what you would do. And if you, let's say you were Avery, and you had murdered her, you're going to leave the fucking key to her car, which you know is going to be the most vital piece of evidence. You're going to leave that on your bedroom floor, the only place within the entire fucking yard that is personally yours.
Well, it's
ridiculous.
The really strange thing as well, and wasn't it that key was completely scrubbed of her DNA, but it had his on it.
Yes.
It's so many like weird things. Like,
it's not difficult to put someone's DNA on a key, just like it's not difficult to smudge somebody's blood on a fucking car.
Yeah, well, you could just grab his toothbrush and run it over the key or something.
Yeah, just a bit of dead skin. You know, skin cells have DNA strands. You know, any piece of, hair, skin, saliva, anything. It's not difficult. And
well, to come back to this episode though, this has used all of these people with the exception of that female police officer, the one that, I mean, they all really had it in for him. All of these people are the same people that come back up in the trial. Now, and one major issue I have with this whole thing is that this was all meant to be handled by the Calumet County Police. Manitowoc Police weren't meant to be on site at all because it was a conflict of interest. Surely the moment that, and all of this evidence, such as the spare key that was found by Manitowoc officers. Surely the moment a Manitowoc officer is coming forward going, I found this, then someone must be saying, well, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here whatsoever. You shouldn't be authorised. There wouldn't be any suspicion. Sorry.
No, go on.
There wouldn't be any suspicion if they hadn't had to get their hands involved. And why was it so desperate that they needed to go back there and search? And why did the Manitowoc people have to get involved in it? So, I mean, I would, even if they weren't, it just, everything on the side of the police, it just looks so incredibly shady. I'm going to skip ahead for a couple of episodes. And I don't.
Be careful.
But there's this guy who's on the screen now, Colborn.
Kratz.
Oh no, sorry, it's the next frame. I must be a bit ahead. Colborn. Yeah.
I like. Do you know what? I had these just before you say what you was going to do. I had these thoughts today when I listened to the second episode in the gym, like I do. And I had like images of myself. I'd imagined these situations where I was gonna like confront him in the street and annihilate him, and just say, "You fucking horrible, corrupt bastard! I hope you fucking rot in hell." That's the emotions that I were feeling.
Yeah, well, he called in the number plate of the car, and I know this is in a later episode, but he called in the number plate 2 days before it was found, and during that phone call, he phones and he says, and this is something that really annoyed me, because he says Sam William Henry 582 or whatever it is. And I'm like, how can a trained police officer not know the phonetic alphabet? I know the phonetic alphabet. I'm sorry, no offense to American people, but really it's not that hard to learn the phonetic alphabet, and it sounds a lot more professional. So anyway, Sierra Whiskey Hotel 582, and the girl goes, yeah, that's a missing persons car, and he goes, green blue Toyota RAV4, and she goes, yeah. And then like the lawyer points out and says, how do you know what type of car it was, and were you standing in front of it? And the thing is, he doesn't say, oh, another officer told me or anything. He just kind of goes, he literally has no excuse for it. Yeah, he goes, oh. Do you know, just a brief side story, some of the guys in the chat will know I ate an onion during a stream on Monday night. And the next day I was like, I'm never eating onion again. Like nothing terrible happened, but the inside of my mouth felt really sore all day. And then I went to a restaurant to get some lunch, and I ordered this like pork sandwich thing, and then my friend asked me, what did you get in it? I was like, oh, it's a pork and caramelized. Oh. But yeah. Yeah, but and he never answers the question, but it never really gets picked up, and it's if you listen as well, because I was kind of coinciding that with Steve Avery's first police interview today, and he mentions both him and his brother see see headlights driving into their yard on like the morning of the 3rd or the evening. So it does kind of fit in that Colborne checked the car and moved it himself.
I mean, can I just kind of point out, because I think the majority of people that are listening to our sort of streams and rants, if you will, from the US. If I'm just sort of trying to give a comparison to how our system works, which is fucking totally inefficient, believe me. With regard to Manitowoc County and the officers directly involved with the previous case of Avery being stitched up for 18 years, Sergeant Colborne, as I understand it, was directly involved with the disappearance of Teresa Halbach, and he was one of the original officers that
on that first
stitched fucking Avery up in the first place. If that had have happened in the UK, that case would have immediately been thrown out by the courts, and I mean immediately.
Yeah.
It just would. And I'm not, please don't think that I'm trying to say that the UK is so much better. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say, I'm trying to give a bit of perspective, in that I don't quite understand how the US courts work. In the UK, we are fucking totally inefficient at handing out just sentences. There's things that the US courts do that I wish we had over here. But it seems to me that what went on there, for them to be, it's like you said before, Adam, when you mentioned it earlier, that how the fuck were they even involved? How were they allowed to be?
Yeah.
I don't understand how such a apparent civilization, well, not civilization,
society.
You know what I mean? Society, yeah, can allow that to happen. How did it happen? That you've clearly got a conflict of interest there. You've got a guy who's sent down for 18 years, and he was suing the people that were searching to get him arrested for murder.
Yeah, these people.
I can't believe it. Even as I'm saying it now.
Well, think about it as well. These people, the money was going to come directly from their pockets, because the insurance companies have said they weren't going to cover it because of this type of corruption is not covered by their insurance policy. So how the hell? I mean, how do they even have jobs anyway? After, like, Colborne and Lenk were both, well, maybe not the right word, but incriminated, but were both found guilty of having information, knowing that someone else did the original crime, and not coming forward with it for 8 years. How the hell do those people still stay in their positions as deputy and sheriff?
I can't answer that.
They should, like, that amount of misconduct should surely always cause in firing. Lenk and Colborne should not still have been working for that police force by that time. If you do something as twisted as keep an innocent man jailed, or a man who's innocent of that crime jailed for 18 years, and you had information not allowed, you should not be allowed to be an officer of the law.
Not only, Adam, and, people can say, please say in the comments what you think. Not only should they not be allowed to continue with that job, they should be prosecuted and sent to prison.
Yeah. They harmed...
There's no doubt about it, because that's what you would call in England perverting the course of justice, which is a very, very serious offence. Now, listen, I'm not standing on a high horse here saying that look at us in the UK. As far as I'm concerned, at the minute, the UK is fucked. the country is fucked. So please believe me. But what I'm trying to say is that what happened in the US that time, I don't think would have happened over here at that time. There's corruption in the UK court systems without a shadow of a doubt, but I think it runs a little bit deeper in the US for that to happen. I don't think that would have happened over here, and I don't think it would have happened in some of the countries. It would have happened in many others, but not all. Do you agree with that, Adam, or do you think I'm being a bit harsh?
Well, no, I just can't believe, and Mrs. Irish just pointed out that they might have been elected officials, and I don't really understand how that works with him. But when you've got people who are meant to be upholding the justice system, perverting the course of justice, surely they should be punished more severely than a civilian.
And as well, let's not forget that, and this happened in episode 2, and we spoke about this when we were talking the other day, because obviously we talk every 5 minutes, Adam. We can't get enough of each other, can we?
Yeah. It's going to be, when you get FIFA, it's going to be even worse.
Oh, I don't even want to think about that. I've pre-ordered it, by the way, and we'll speak about that later.
Oh, did you? Which edition did you get, just quickly? Sorry for the digression, guys.
Shit, I've lost my train of thought now. What was this?
I don't know. Oh, we talk every 5 minutes? And
no, before that.
I've forgotten. I want to know what edition of FIFA you got.
No, it's not. It's not a digital copy. It's a physical copy.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just standard edition.
Yeah. Well, I'm not doing the Ultimate Team thing.
No. Well, I ordered the Icon edition today.
We can't talk about. I had a really prominent fucking thing to say then, and it's just totally gone.
You have really to go back and listen to the stream and remember it. Because
I've had a couple of drinks as well, and oh shit! And it's such a serious topic, really.
That's why we need to be a bit more light-hearted on occasion.
It's not. You don't want to get.
Well, we were talking about whether they should have been prosecuted before. That was the main theme. The police officials.
Yes, that's right. Yes, we were. Yeah, and obviously we came to the conclusion that it should be, because we know. I mean, what do we know? Let's look at. I think.
Well, we know they're crooked policemen. I mean, surely if you have crooked people in a job that relies on being trustworthy, they should be kicked out at the first signs of misdemeanor.
But they didn't get proved guilty of anything.
Oh, that was part of it.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I've remembered it's coming. Sorry to interrupt, Adam.
No.
The prominent part for me was that, and me and you spoke about this, Stephen Avery had to settle to around about an amount of $400,000. And with that, it meant that the Manitowoc County Police Department didn't have to accept any guilt whatsoever for him being locked up for 18 years in the first place. Now, when I remember re-listening to that for the second time, because obviously I heard it before, it made me realise how ridiculously convenient the whole case was. In other words, when that happened, everything that all the fears about him getting let off with it were totally diminished. They didn't have to accept guilt. They didn't have to pay the millions of dollars. So in other words,
no, he got that $400K settlement before, and that he basically had to do that because it meant he could afford lawyers to go for the larger amount of money.
Oh, of course, yeah, but what I meant was, it was all like so. It was like it was completely calculated and.
Oh yeah, like gave him just enough.
It was a perfect scenario for the Manitowoc County Police, and the courts in that area. So in other words, everything that happened from then on, it couldn't have gone better for them. It was like if you was going to write, if the people involved in what happened to Avery in the first place could have wrote something, that's what would have happened, and it was too perfect for them. So it obviously leads you to think on Earth what happened to Teresa Halbach. We're probably going to go into that more in future episodes, but I don't want to go into it too much. But I think it might be worth mentioning who the fucking hell killed her if Stephen Avery didn't.
Well, there's quite a few more players we need to bring in before we get to that point, though. Although if you're watching the slideshow, you might get an idea.
Right.
Yeah, if you look at the people I've chosen for this slideshow, then you might get an idea of who we'll talk about in the future.
But can I ask you one question, though, Adam?
Yeah.
We'll go into it in more detail, later on. Do you think, honestly, that the Manitowoc County Police, given everything that's happened, could have had a role to play in Teresa Halbach's murder?
At this point, and of course,
her initial murder.
Reviewing it from the point that, imagining I've only seen the first 2 episodes, I would say that the question is not did they have a hand in it. It's how much of a hand did they have in it. I think.
Let me re-ask the question. Do you think they had a significant role to play in her murder?
Yes. Whether or not they did it themselves is obviously something we'll have to go into deeper when we get later on. That's the main question that surrounds this. And honestly, I still fluctuate. Everyone at this point in time is still a suspect. I would love some new information to come to light. So that we could really understand. I think to an extent you almost have to accept, or not accept, but you have to wonder whether I need to listen to the rest of Stephen Avery's interviews and see what I make of it.
Yeah, maybe we can go into that a little bit more in a few more minutes, because from episode 2 that we wanted to talk about, there was a significant chunk of Stephen Avery's police interview that was featured in that episode. And on that, I'm just going to have to nip to the little boys' room. Adam, if you'd like to keep your audience entertained for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, well, Spazzy says, how was she killed? Now, this is obviously a bit of a spoiler, because we're trying to do this like episode by episode to get as much blood out of the stone as we can. But she was killed. Well, what they say is it was like a brutal rape, torture, and then she was shot in the head, stabbed, had her throat slashed. However, none of that really can be exactly proved. The only things that were proved is in the skull that was found, the skull that was found in the burn pit, a bit of skull was found there, and it had 2 marks that looked as if they would have come from a bullet going into them. So all of the other really horrible things that they say happened, no one can actually say for certain whether they did happen or not, because so little of the body was actually recovered. And that's why the question, people always, the reason personally, they say rape is because people need a motive, don't they? And that's what kind of brings us back to looking at the police. They were the only ones that had a really big motive to do this. It just seems very strange, to draw an innocent person. Okay. But if it's just, I think the question is, are these policemen dark enough to kill an innocent person to work themselves out of a 36 million debt? And possibly a lot more reprimands, because once that had gone to court, it may well have been they would have lost their jobs once that had gone to court. So I suppose that case, even that deposition that you see in episode 1 and 2, it was still technically ongoing. I mean, he had taken the settlement, but it hadn't been resolved. So their punishment could, say for example, the whole Teresa Halbach thing didn't happen. Then they probably would have lost their jobs afterwards. I mean, they were certainly on their way to losing a lot of face.
I think, and I touched upon this last time, I think the catalyst was when Avery had a go at the one of the I think it was the the sheriffs or the assistant sheriff, whatever you call it, the wife of someone prominent in the police. He had a go at her and like threatened her and all that, and it just spiraled out of control. And then that county police had a major gripe with Avery, and they already did anyway because they were outsiders. And this is what I think. It became part of the psyche of that police force that he was a hated character. They all talked about him in the lunch. They all hated him. And then they had an opportunity to get him done as far as they were concerned. And
well, that's the question. I mean, if he was framed, and I have theories, and we'll go into the more fantastical theories as the series allows us. The trouble is there's certain characters that have not been brought in yet that we can't really yet discuss without giving it away. I mean, but based on these first couple of episodes, I have to say it's one theory. I'm not saying it's correct, but it's one theory that the police did do it. Oh, and well, did you listen to the phone call I sent you?
You can't deny that, can you?
And I'm saying, like, from top to bottom, like, they killed her and then just, you know... But then that, it may... I mean, what it looks more like, the way it kind of all happened with the little... There's someone in the chat called Horse Dink.
I've picked up on that. Is he a doctor?
He must be a doctor. But, yeah... What was I saying? I put myself off now.
You're saying there's someone within the community who...
Oh, yeah, like it might have been someone else did it and the police sort of thought, this is our opportunity, don't worry, fellas. Let's
we spoke
sweep
about
this
that
under the
before,
carpet.
haven't we, Adam?
Yeah.
That was one of our theories, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But... I suppose the question we're all dancing around is, well, not dancing around, someone's mentioned it in the comments, is what, and even we have, is it possible that people within the police force could be that dark that they could murder an innocent person to protect themselves? And I would suggest, well, I wouldn't even suggest, I know it's possible. I just know it with human nature as it is. Let's look at the world as it is for the minute. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely one of the possibilities as to how Teresa Halbach may have faced her demise.
Let's look at it. We might be jumping ahead here, Adam, and stop me if I am.
No, it's all right.
Her body was never found.
No, bits of bone were found. The most vital
piece of evidence is her body that was never found. Never.
Well, yeah, but they say it was burnt. There was bits of her skull found, and other parts of bone found in various.
Well,
burn
her body
sites.
was still never found. That's the point I'm making.
Well, they're claiming it was incinerated.
Right. Yes, but what I'm trying to say is, is it not convenient that it just so happens that her body? Sorry, she was murdered in such a way that her body could never be recovered, apart from a couple of pieces of fragments that would indicate someone else did it. It's bullshit. It's total bullshit. You can't get rid of a body that easily unless you've got the kind of chemicals that fucking Walter White had in Breaking Bad. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well,
you know, sorry if I'm getting...
No, it's sorry, because I'll mention something from a bit ahead, and I know we'll probably come back to these things in finer details later anyway, but also, like, this whole finding only his blood in his garage where the bullet was found, and yet not a drop of hers, and they're saying that this guy is stupid enough to do this when he's waiting for 36 million, yet he's that much of a genius to know how to clean up every drop of blood with the exception of his own.
No, I didn't even think of it like that, Adam. That's another, that's another way, a brilliant way of putting it. Of course, it's
it's the Heisenberg chemicals that made me think of that, because it's like, well, this guy must know what he's doing, but yet he's so stupid he couldn't wait a couple of weeks, when he could afford to do whatever
The thing is as well,
aristocracy can do.
it's not in Avery's character to do what he did, and I don't mean it's not in his character to hurt anyone. It's not in his character to, as you've just brilliantly pointed out, it's not in his character to murder someone, to disintegrate the body, and then very expertly cover up all the evidence, apart from a spot of blood in her car.
And then
It's
park
just
her
not.
car on
That's not his character. That's not Stephen Avery.
And then park her car on his own land, where he actually owns a car crusher anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's so frustrating. It's the thing is, as human beings, we all have a dark side to us, but we don't like to see David to get crushed by Goliath, and that's exactly what's happened here. And it's
definitely, and we're not saying either that he definitely didn't do it. I mean, he's certainly not ruled out as a suspect. We're just trying to analyse as much as we can to hopefully come to some kind of conclusion by the time we get to the end of this. But we can only judge him by what they show us in the documentary, which might not, well, and of course the interviews and the bits that are online.
Sorry, Adam. Someone mentioned in the in one of the comments, I think it was while we were doing one of the streams, and said there's loads of other cases in the US of a similar nature, and I'm like, I'm sure there is, but the unique thing about this one is it's got a Netflix documentary series behind it. In other words, we've got lots of insight that we wouldn't have had if Netflix hadn't done a documentary about it.
Well,
so
exactly.
it's so there's that perspective, and also it is a very unique story. I mean, come on, someone who was locked up for 18 years, then he gets out, he proves his innocence, and then he decides to either murder someone or get stitched up. It's a ridiculously compelling tale.
Yeah. I just don't think, like, it just, looking at it, especially from these first two episodes, you can't say, it just seems like it's too ridiculous for him to do it, and everything throughout the whole story, there's issues of contention absolutely everywhere. And even people should have been like, the justice system should have been saying, let's avoid that, why are these sheriffs allowed to go and search his property when they've been told specifically they can't, and yet this evidence is still allowed to be used in the courtroom?
It stinks of like corruption at a disturbing level. I always try and not take life too seriously, but when you read about something like this, about innocent people's lives getting ruined, it really does start to get to you a little bit. And I mean, like you've said, Adam, we can't be sure. We're not fucking.
I mean, the thing is, if we went around saying he's definitely innocent, get him out, and then it turned out he was guilty, you'd feel pretty bad. But that's what makes me just annoyed, that the whole case has been handled from start to finish so terribly, because it isn't fair. Especially if he is innocent, like these people, just because they're people in positions of power and they have accesses and stuff, they go and do things which are totally outside their protocol, and so it just makes everything look so incredibly suspicious.
Well, the thing was, and one of the things I didn't remember from when I watched it initially, was that I remember thinking back to the series and thinking, well, he just got, originally, when he was locked up for 18 years, it was a simple mistake. Like, it was a simple mistake of DNA evidence that had gone wrong, and he was accidentally blamed. But that wasn't the case. He was stitched up then. He was stitched up for that crime. There's no doubt about it. Anybody that would watch that evidence with an ounce of common sense would agree that the evidence was deliberately misled to believe that he conducted that crime when he didn't, because the police had it in for him. That is quite clear. So for it to happen for a second time is almost in the realms of Fantasyland, and that's what. And I remember watching the documentary back for the watching the series for the first time when it was aired on Netflix, and I had to. I mentioned this before. I had to keep going to Google to confirm that it was real, because I couldn't believe that we lived in a world where people could get away with this kind of thing, and it kind of makes you mad, doesn't it? It's like I said. I always try my best to look at things from other people's point of view, but if I came across that Kratz or Colburn in the street, I'd be tempted to murder them myself.
Well, yeah, I don't know about murdering them, but yeah, have a strong word with them.
Tempted, I said.
Attempted, okay. That's
tempted.
Oh, tempted, not attempted. Yeah, that's still pretty bad. But also talking about this episode 2 again, you have to remember those depositions when they were being made what was it, days before this actually happened in the whole timeline of things. The police must be really pissed off with that guy because they go into this deposition and it kind of starts off powly, like they're all like, oh, well, we're all police together, yeah, it'll be fine. And then they start getting really questioned like that, a Judy Dvorak lady, and she's like, oh, I wouldn't have said that about Stephen Avery. And then they read her the transcript where she said exactly that. And so they're literally making these people, he's making these people feel really stupid, putting them in. Have you ever been reprimanded at work before? Have you ever been taken into the boss's office and had a word?
Oh, of course.
You know how that feels. Well, imagine you're a really powerful person and suddenly that's being done to you because this one guy who you always hated has got out now. They must have been building such burning resentments towards him, and then suddenly this happens within a couple of days. In fact, I mean, if it was the police that did it, and even if it was opportune and someone had murdered them and they went, okay, right, we're going to use this to frame Steve, it's very audacious. It's in the situation that they were in to even try something like that. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, but they got away with it. It's like Avery said when they spoke to him on the phone, and he said, well, they got away with it once, why they would have been thinking we can get away with it again, and that's obviously what went on. There's no grey area. Well, I suppose there is. You can't. We're always going to dance around the main issue is it possible that people in a position of apparent morality could murder an innocent person like that? And that's something we'll go into a little bit further on. Maybe not now, but that's the underlying issue for me, as I'm sure it is for you as well, and as everybody that's listening. It's like I think you said to me, Adam, when you watched it, and someone was interviewed. Oh, sorry, I can't remember the name of the defending lawyer. They said, I hope to God he did murder her, because if he didn't,
oh yeah,
we're all fucked, basically.
That was Dean Strang, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And he came across, and I don't know whether it's just because he's defending someone you think is innocent, but he came across as such a nice, honourable guy, which is obviously unusual for someone in that position. But he just came across as a very likeable character. Do you agree with that, Adam?
Who? Stephen Avery or Dean Strang?
Strang.
Oh yes, Strang. Both of the lawyers were very good. They were great lawyers, those pair. I don't know if you heard about they became like the heartthrobs of the series when it first came out, apparently.
No, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, everyone. Well, because they were just very fair and very good at what they did, especially Strang. But yeah, I think there's one part in one of the episodes, and sorry, we're going ahead again, but where they're reading out some comments to each other, and it says, what he reads out and says, oh, it's lucky Strang isn't on this case alone, or he'd definitely win it. But yeah, no, both of the lawyers are fantastic. Of course, we'll get to see a lot more of them as we cover the future episodes.
Oh, definitely, because the future ones we're going to be doing are about the court cases. But I suppose there's one question that we've not really addressed yet, and I'd like to ask you first, Dan, and then maybe I'll have a pop at answering it. Is Do you think, from the evidence that we've been presented with so far, that you think that Stephen Avery is capable of murdering Teresa Halbach?
So if we're just talking about the first 2 episodes,
well, yeah,
he
from
doesn't strike me as someone who would, as a murderer. But then you'd never know what a murderer looks like, do you?
No, you don't. And I'd like to reiterate, we can never be certain, of course, but you have a hunch, and as human beings, we have instincts.
Yeah.
That the masses don't want us to use, but
that's
mine is he isn't a murderer. That's just what I personally believe.
He's the trouble is, if he did commit this and did it nearly such an awesome job of, maybe awesome's the wrong word in this context, sorry, but such a good,
we know what you mean, don't worry
such a
about
good job of hiding the evidence. But yet they want to say he's an idiot at the same time and a monster who wouldn't understand what he's doing. And it's like, well, he's either like a genius of some kind, or an idiot savant, like like some people are really stupid but they're amazing with numbers or something. But he's really stupid but amazing at cleaning up crime scenes. I just don't.
Of course, I mean, people are making comments like, Spazzy and Ashley in the comments that and Quincy Pumpkin, that we're all sort of deep within us got the capability, and I agree with that to an extent. We've all got a dark side to us. We've all got a little bit of anger. We're all plagued by human emotions because we're humans. But if you've got to look at each situation in its own merits, and you've got to try and judge an individual character. So if he murdered Teresa Halbach, this is a girl who's already been to the Avery Yard on a couple of occasions, as I understand.
He said in the interview I was listening to today that she'd been there 15 times before. So
I don't think you might be right. I read it was only 2 or 3 times, but you may be right.
Well, this might be part of the inconsistencies in his story, so we need to try and make sure we also listen to the police interviews as well to get a bit of
that's a
fuller
good point,
picture.
Actually, but it was on the doc. It was actually on the documentary, the Netflix documentary, where I think they said she'd already been there 2 or 3, like a few. No, I'll tell you what it was. It was a news report for an American news channel that said she'd already been there a few times before, because it would stand to reason that, let's look at it logically. He is part of a scrapyard and she photographs cars and things. It's not totally unbelievable that she would go there.
No, of course not.
So she goes there, and obviously that happens. But so the point is, it's not unfeasible that would happen. But obviously, what happens after that is a different story, isn't it?
Yeah. But, I mean, there's all sorts of other speculation we'll go into later as well, because there's the phone call I sent you through Skype earlier. I don't know if you've listened to that. I'm not sure if that's taken out of context or not, though, because that's from Sean Atwood's channel, who's very pro-criminals. Well, not pro-criminals, but, like, he's an ex-convict and stuff, so he's, like, completely advocating their innocence, but I'm not sure of the context of the phone call I sent you, but it's between 2 of the policemen, and it, I may as well say, and it says, like, they say that she went to Zipper's residence during that call. They said that was the last place she went, but they say that's the last place she went. I don't think they actually confirmed, like, there was a witness that saw her or anything, but in the same call they mentioned that there was some other people that had said they'd seen her around.
Yeah. Well, this is the question, isn't it? She she went to that yard just as another job, and then suddenly when she went missing, this is the thing, that another question, she went missing, and then the car turned up all of a sudden. Then parts of her alleged corpse started turning up when no one had seen it before.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's all sorts we'll go into once we start talking about the excavation at the Avery site.
Oh, by the way, happy birthday to
Don't-
you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Adam. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's your birthday now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I suppose so. In England it is. In Spain it has been for an hour. But I wasn't born until lunchtime, so my mum used
Well, technically, it is your now birthday, and I would like to wish you a very happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my mum used to put a little note in my lunchbox to remind me. That was cute when I was little. But anyway, so I guess we're probably going to wrap things up fairly soon because I'm quite tired. But we might do a very drunken stream tomorrow that won't be about making a murderer. Is there any final things we haven't covered you want to discuss, Andy?
Well, to be honest, I think there's a few things. I
Okay,
can't
well,
remember,
go
but I
for it.
know there's quite a lot within the episode that we've not gone over excessively. But
We need to watch them and take notes.
I know, but it's like we were going to get the synopsis of each episode, weren't we?
Yeah, well, I sent you a synopsis, but again, it's really hard to find ones that aren't full of personal opinion, and the other ones that are like professional synopsis, just gonna say, in this one they put forward some evidence.
There's one thing that I think we should briefly talk about before we end the stream, and that's Hallbox, Teresa's brother. Because you said to me that he comes across as being weird.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it to make that decision, but one thing that did strike me is that people in his situation, like family members, they're always looking for someone to blame because they can't think objectively. In other words, their emotions are getting the better of them. So you can understand this. Yeah, it's him. The police are saying it's him.
I'm not saying it's him. It's just there was just something felt off about him. I'm not saying he's involved, but it's just like none of the other family, and of course it could be that the documentary itself is manipulated, but he's the only one of the family that kind of seems to come forward in the press conferences, and there's a very strange part, a film when it's him and Ryan Hillegas, who should be on the screen now, I think. Are searching, and it's right when they're stood outside the Avery's yard, right before the I think I'm basically giving away spoilers completely for the next episode now, but when the lady found the car, and he says, and this is before any Teresa's body's been found, he says, you know, the grieving process is difficult. And then you listen, and he tries to like retract his words and kind of says, "Oh, but of course we hope we still find her alive." It's very strange that he talks about her as if she's dead already after 3 days.
But I wouldn't, if I'd like to play devil's advocate here, I wouldn't read too much into that because, to be fair, if you've got a missing person case and someone's been missing for 3 days,
you would try and adjust yourself.
99% of the time they're going to be fucking dead, aren't they?
Yeah. But then why try and change, why try and explain what he said, unless he thought, Jesus, this sounds like I'm incriminating myself. Yeah, it could have been a David Brent moment.
Yeah, it could have been, he's thought, I've been a bit insensitive there. You know what I mean? I wouldn't look too much into that personally. You might be right. You could totally be, but I wouldn't dwell too much on that. Personally.
Well, once we actually get to the end of this, I'm going to bring forward some pictures and things that I found online and some little videos that I suggest you watch. And they all sort of show different things. There's things that show that it's much more possible Stephen Avery is guilty. Then there's things that sort of show how many other kind of suspects there are in this case. I mean, that's one of the big problems with the whole case as well. No other suspects were ever questioned. Not even other people in the Avery family, except Brendan months later.
But that would also ring true if it is the police, because they'd know how to cover the tracks. So I think, do you understand what I'm saying? It's like if you've got I don't know. It's to suggest that someone in that position would do that. It's really horrifying. It really, really is. I actually, it's like even Strauss said, I hope Avery did do it.
Yeah.
You know, just to, because it's just not nice.
Because if not, yeah, it's innocent man banged up for the second time.
You know, and what even discounting what happened in the first one, where you've got Gregory Allen running around fucking raping women who could have been locked up. I mean, it's just it's beyond comprehension.
That's part of the problem with the whole thing as well, though, because it's almost like he was sent down on the reputation of a crime he'd just been cleared for.
Exactly.
If you see what I mean, it's like they judged him on that previous crime, even though it had been cleared beyond doubt he didn't do that crime. Oh, yeah.
Mashes your head, doesn't it?
It does.
But that's what makes it so compelling, because it really is an unbelievable tale of. It's pretty much got everything, and this is why I wanted you to watch it so much. And those two women that made the documentary on Netflix, Jesus Christ, what a fantastic case they decided to follow, because I just hope in the end justice gets done. But it's fun to explore the ins and outs of it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's fun to explore because it is still kind of it's a case. I mean, because in the future when we do more truth detectives, we'll look at some more fun cases. This one is quite a difficult one to handle, because if it is an innocent man,
I don't think you can have more fun cases of murder and rape, can you, Adam?
I think when you look at older crimes, it seems strange to say, doesn't it? But it's like you can make jokes about terrible things as long as enough time has passed. So it's easier to look back at things from, even 20 years ago, and they don't seem quite as harrowing for a case that could possibly be a man rotting in jail for something he hasn't done now for the second time in his life.
Yeah, you've got a point there.
Well, on that note, guys, I think we're going to wrap things up, if that's all right with you, Andy.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, and it's been a bit of fun. I've enjoyed talking about it.
Yeah, pleasure. Well, we'll be doing the third one again soon, I guess. I'm not sure when, and we might do not a Making a Murderer stream tomorrow if I can still function after my scam
which
dating
is doubtful.
Stream. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I wonder I wonder if I might get banned from streaming for encouraging drinking.
Oh, fucking don't do that, because I'm already banned, so that means we can't stream.
Well, it'll only be on my main channel. So hopefully that won't happen. I don't know. I mean, it's not illegal, is it? I'm allowed to get drunk. I'll just say it's shots of water.
You've been getting drunk on your main channel for fucking 2 years, so why would they start having a go at you now?
Well, yeah, that's true. All right, well, thanks for joining us, everyone in the chat, and thanks for joining me, Andy.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
And we'll speak to you soon.